Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's about 3:25 Pacific time on this Wednesday. I gotta be at work in about 2 hours and 5 minutes. I'm doing this as quickly as I can because my mom took the kids to CrossFit about 30 minutes ago. And well, first of all, she's got to take them to CrossFit. Then she's got to take my sister's car back to her, and then I guess they got to wait for her to do her CrossFit, or they're gonna have her bring them back, and then she's gonna do her CrossFit, or whatever. But first of all, I want to thank MJ Knight for accepting the suggestion and the challenge. And I figured while I got the time, I might as well kind of review and explain why um, the final four episodes of Sonic SatAM, the Doomsday Project Saga, or as I like to call it, and mostly when you carefully edited them together into one single movie, one single like feature film, you call the Doomsday Project movie. Well, first of all, a little bit of background to explain what I'm talking about. You see, for over a decade, well, a little over a decade, or about a decade, I've I've always looked at I didn't really look at it at first, but when when Rafaela XD, I think she's still here on YouTube, Rafaela XD, when she helped me out and I bought, I believe I bought the VCDs at the time of SatAM from her. As I watched those episodes there, I came to realize, and even before then, when I had somebody else send me the three out of the final four episodes, I came to realize that there was something there. I came to realize that perhaps there was something that could have been. And the more I watched the episodes and the more I looked into it, the more I realized that these final four episodes were basically like a mini series. That's what they were. They were like a mini series. They were like, well, let me explain. You see, at the time, around this time, Spider-Man on Fox, I think, was just getting ready to come on. I think around this time. And one of the things that it did, as well as what the X-Men did, well, X-Men did it in parts and all that, but one of the things it did, and one of the things X-Men, well, mostly Spider-Man did, that made me think that maybe that's what they were doing here, except they didn't really acknowledge it, was in Spider-Man, they would do an entire season or do an entire story arc in chapters. It's like for the first part of the season, or at least for the first maybe 5, 6 episodes, it'd be just standalone episodes, maybe have some connection somewhat. But then later on, they would start going off into chapters, like Sins of the Father, Chapter 1, or something like that, or Munigenic Nightmare, Chapter 1, or Chapter 2, things like that. And I thought to myself, this is interesting. This is really interesting, and I like it. And I liked it because basically they were saying that episode each episode was a different chapter, if you will, was a different chapter of a book, of a comic. Like each episode was like an issue of a comic, like issue such and such. Like issue 115 was chapter 1. And then all of a sudden 125 is chapter 10. It's something like that. And I thought that was a cool concept. So when I look at it and I took that concept that they did with Spider-Man, and I looked at it and I took it and I placed it on and kind of added it to this whole Doomsday thing on Sonic SatAM, I kind of said to myself that it kind of makes sense. That if that basically each episode leading to Doomsday itself was a chapter. And just like with Spider-Man and X-Men and all that, and even some shows before it, you always had a prelude episode introducing you to what the next arc, or final arc of the season, or final arc, I should say, of the season, or next arc of the season was going to be. You would always have a prelude episode. And the prelude episode we had was The Void. And The Void basically did a lot in 30 minutes to not only get you ready and set and prepared for this, but it got you, it got you wondering exactly what this Doomsday Project is, who these other freedom fighters are. Now, you might say that this was actually acknowledged back in the very first episode of Season 2 in Game Guy, where Ari, before he sacrifices himself temporarily to the Void, mentions the King's List, and that there are other freedom fighters groups that were looking for Sally. And here's the thing, we never get an acknowledgement of that ever again into the Void. When the King physically gives her the list of freedom fighter groups. So I thought that was really cool. But I thought that was really cool because that itself, the list of freedom fighter groups that's mentioned in Game Guy, and then once again is revisited back in the Void, that actually plays a part in the first, what I consider, chapter of the Doomsday Project saga, or if you, like I say, you edit them together very carefully, the Doomsday Project movie. It plays a big part. And then Doomsday, well, that gets referenced right in the Void episode, almost right at the beginning. And that gets played upon later on in Cry of the Wolf, Druid Hedge, Spy Hog, and of course Doomsday Project itself. So basically the Void played an important part leading into the Doomsday Project movie / saga. Now, like I said, the reason I call it this is because, like anybody back in the day, even with VHS, and Zara Nizarak at Multimedia Chronicles even mentioned this, that because he mentioned this actually 3 years ago when I sent him one of the first packages when I sent him a package for the first time, and in that package was the Doomsday Project movie. Basically, even back then, people would take a lot of episodes. If, let's say, they were recording G.I. Joe or Transformers or whatever, they would take the episodes that consisted of miniseries, like, let's say, 5 Faces of Darkness on Transformers, or the Megatron's Master Plan, or Rebirth, all Transformer stuff, right? Or G.I. Joe, Rise of, the Rise of Cobra, Arise Serpento Arise. These miniseries that they did, people would take them, and if they had 2 VCRs, they would carefully edit one episode into another, and thus not have to worry about another title screen. They wouldn't have to worry about, well, maybe another title screen, because back then you had the titles right on the right on the picture, if you know what I mean. As you're getting an introduction, as the episode's beginning, you have the titles right there, or the episode title right there, I should say. And basically, with the exception of those things back then, people would edit it to where you only had the intro and you had the ending credits, and that's it. You didn't have any other intros or ending credits anywhere else. All you had was the intro and the ending credits after all the episodes had already and and in between you had all the episodes edited together into a movie. And some people did that, and believe it or not, there have been some professional home video distributors that have done that too. I mean, Family Home Entertainment has done that with Transformers and G.I. Joe and Gem. In fact, if you think about it, in the UK, and I know MJ Knight knows about this, in the UK, I think it was the equivalent of Rhino or Family Home Entertainment, I believe Metrodome over there, or whoever, released on VHS, and I think later on DVD, Gem the movie. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, Gem the movie ain't happening for another few years. That's the live action film. The one I'm talking about here was actually the first 5 episodes of the show. Yeah. Basically, those were edited together, courtesy of Metrodome, and I think, according to Zero Nizarak, you could find a way to actually watch them as a movie in the complete series set, released by Shout Factory. But over in the UK, basically, they took those episodes and they placed them together as a movie. It's the introductory movie. That's what they did. So it's not a surprise that people would do that. I mean, heck, when you watch Rebirth on the Rhino set, when you watch Transformers Rebirth on the Season 3, Part 2, and Season 4 volumes by Rhino, and I think even on the Shout Factories, you can either have the choice of watching it in miniseries format or watching it as a movie. And that's what Rhino did. Rhino actually released Rebirth as a movie as well. It's its own individual movie release on DVD. It did that. So it's not out of the realms of possibility, which is why I did what I did. I carefully, and again, I know I sound like a broken record here, but I carefully edited together the final 4 episodes. I took the Doomsday Project title card, took that, basically, carefully and timely paused my DVD recorder, went to Cry of the Wolf, went through the intro, went through the titles card, and then carefully, as soon as it went to black, carefully and timely unpaused and then carefully went right into Cry of the Wolf without the Cry of the Wolf title card, almost like it transitioned right into the episode itself from the Doomsday Project title card. And the same thing happened, and I did the same thing after Cry of the Wolf was done. I did the same thing, carefully and timely edited the fade to black from the end of Cry of the Wolf into the start without the title card of Droodhedge. And I repeated the same process from Droodhedge to Spyhog and then Spyhog to Doomsday. And to me, the only things I kept were the intro, the Doomsday Project title card, and the ending of Doomsday. The ending credits, I should say. And that was it. That was it. And when you think about that, you realize, oh, shoot, that does sound like a movie. Because think about it this way. When a movie is split up into a miniseries for a certain show, like back in the day, Transformers, they actually split up Transformers the movie into a miniseries to be shown on television. When they would do that, they would always do it to be continued, and then when they come back the next day or the next weekend, it would continue on to the next part, almost like it's transitioning in. See what I'm saying? They did that with My Little Pony when they showed My Little Pony the movie in miniseries format. They did the same thing with G.I. Joe the movie when they showed that in miniseries format. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And to me, I look at how this was done as being in that realm of possibility. I really do. And I also look at it as being a missed opportunity. Because basically every episode had a connection with each other. So it's almost like you didn't really have to show this as a miniseries. I mean, as the final 4 episodes, as individual chapters, if you will, in the saga. All you had to do was show it as a movie. And ABC, to me, had a great opportunity in front of it here in the United States and wherever else it was broadcast to air this during the holiday season, the Thanksgiving weekend, if you will, to air this as a movie. They could have done it on TGIF. They could have. They had a golden opportunity. If they knew the show was coming to an end, they had a golden opportunity to go out with a bang, and they didn't take it. And it's kind of a shame they didn't. I mean, Power Rangers took advantage of prime time for a while with their second season premieres. X-Men did the same thing with their third season premieres. On Fox, they took advantage of that. ABC could have done the same thing, but they didn't. But the point is, this is why I look at it as a movie. I really do. And I look at it as a miniseries, a chapter miniseries, a movie, a saga, whatever you want to call it. And to me, to really get into kind of responding to the acceptance of the challenge by MJ Knight, when I look at the final 4 episodes and I look at The Void, it really has a lot going for it. I mean, like I said earlier, let's start with The Void. Of course, we get introduced to Axis Nagas in this episode, who we find out, in spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen the final episode of SatAM, Axis Nagas is actually the one behind the red glowing eyes at the end of Doomsday Project, the end of the final episode. Even though some still theorize that it was not him and it was Metal Sonic or maybe even Knuckles. But who knows? But yeah, people still theorize that. And when I look at The Void, like I said, it introduces him. We finally do find out what happened to Sally actually finally finds out what happens to her father when we saw it. If you watch Blast of the Past, we saw it. But anyway, Sally finds out finally where her father has been. And we finally get a connection with the Game Guy episode with Ari's return and, of course, the list of freedom fighters. But it's also in this episode we find out about Doomsday. I mean, you find out, first of all, when they get a message from Uncle Chuck and Bunny is reading it off saying Robotnik planning something big. And for them to send Sonic. So when Sonic's down, he finds out about Doomsday and that who's involved in it. You know, Sonic already knows this doesn't sound good, right? So obviously, just by looking at the main character saying, hey, it sounds mondo ugly, you know it's something big. You know, and wanting to know when the next meeting was. Now, my concept on that is if they wanted to continue with an extra episode or even a deleted scene, they could have had Sonic find out when the next meeting was and then drop in on Eggman, not Eggman, but Robotnik and say, hey, so much for your Doomsday stuff, whatever. But they didn't do that, and I thought that was a smart move. They didn't do that. It was a smart move. But I like how they acknowledge at the end of the Void episode that they acknowledge that Nagas is going to find a way out, even though they don't know that he's going to find a way out for his own means. But they do acknowledge that they got Ari back, and they do acknowledge they got the Freedom Fighter list, which is all good. And I like how that transitions after, of course, we get the second of our two 11-minute short episodes. I like how when we get to Cry of the Wolf and everything, how it really starts all coming into place. Because we finally see what the Doomsday Project is capable of. We see and we see connections to other episodes as well. You know, like when Robotnik finds out about the wolf pack still being alive, he kind of says he thought basically his reaction is that he thought they eradicated that bunch, which kind of makes you think back to the episode No Brainer, when he basically says he's going to go up north to take care of a certain group of freedom fighters. And you come to realize that certain group of freedom fighters perhaps is the wolf pack. But I like how it has a connection to maybe to the episode No Brainer. But I like how it also shows what the Doomsday Project is capable of by bringing out these Doomsday pods that are virtually indestructible. Virtually indestructible. So I like that. And I like how it finally, at the end, gathers all the freedom fighters. I really like that part. I really do. Druid Hedge, I really like as well because it's a connection to several episodes, including those little short episodes as well. Because it's a connection to, well, of course, Tails' training, which is pretty good. It connects to that in some ways. And I like how it allows Tails to come full circle. It allows him to become finally what he's been training to be, and that's a freedom fighter. So I like that aspect of it. I really do. And I like how it kind of plays on Tails' intelligence, because Tails basically takes everything he was trained of by Sally, Bunny, and Sonic, and finally puts it all together along with his own intelligence, comes up with a plan to fake out Robotnik with fake power stones, or with a fake power stone, while they, at the end, gather the new one. Thus, getting him officially dubbed a freedom fighter. So, I thought Druid Hedge really had a good connection to some of the short episodes, especially the ones with Tails, and some other episodes. I like that, so I really give him credit. I really do. And I like how, again, like I said, it plays on what he's been trained about. Shows that he was trained by Sally on the computer PC technical stuff and all that. So I really thought I really love how they pieced that all together for that episode. Spy Hog I thought was good. Well, before I get into Spy Hog, I do want to mention one thing about Druid Hedge. I like how they kind of acknowledge that Sally's got to wait till she comes of age to get certain information out of Nicole. But the certain information that she needs now, I like how they basically have to get Sonic to basically acknowledge, basically what I'm saying is I like how they get Sonic to get Nicole to acknowledge, hey, if this Doomsday thing goes off, what's the point of her coming of age to get the information? And basically allows Nicole to process, boom, there's the information Sally needs. So, but I do like to acknowledge that she has to wait, hey, till she comes of age to learn about certain things, to unlock certain items. Then we get into Spy Hog, and this connects back all the way to Sonic Inversion and throughout all the other episodes. I like how Sonic and I think even Sally and Bunny are like finally acknowledging that Chuck has to get out of there. And, Chuck basically being like, no, I understand where you guys are coming from, but I need to remain here, because if I'm not here, we won't know what's happening. We won't have the upper hand. So I do like the fact that has come full circle, and that even you have Robotnik finally find out that he's being spied on, and that his spy is actually someone that has regained their free will. The one thing I'm kind of disappointed in, and I'm not trying to downplay this episode because it was a good episode. Do not get me wrong. It was a good episode. Was the one thing that they downplayed was they never had, or didn't just downplay, but didn't take advantage of, is they didn't have Robotnik, continue, or at least, well, this is one thing they didn't take advantage of, and that is having Robotnik basically try to, make a stronger effort at making sure nobody regains the free will no matter how it's done. So I'm kind of surprised they downplayed that instead of playing it up a little bit later on, but maybe if the third season would have happened, they would have done that. But anyway, I do like how it comes full circle. I like how Uncle Chuck basically has already had an alternative backup plan just in case this happens. Happens by saying, "Yeah, I'm still going to spy, but I'm going to spy in disguise." I like how he's got this all figured out, already planned out, and everything. So it's pretty cool. I like that. I do. One thing that is notable about this episode is it also does something that, well, I guess if you're a fan of the character, you've been saying, well, he does deserve at least a little bit of a reward. He does at least deserves to get one little kiss and all that down the line, and he finally does. I mean, it does kind of finally show Antoine with a little bit of bravery by kind of making sure Sally's magnetic vest is, by basically giving Sally enough time to reconnect her metal vest and, back onto the tanker truck, a tanker, or whatever it is. So I like that, and I like how that basically gets him rewarded with a kiss on the cheek finally. So, to me, that also was a hint of things to come in the third season because it's acknowledged by Ben Hurst that Sonic was going to have a rival. And I think we know who that rival could have been. Maybe. But I like how that finally allowed that to come full circle. But I also like how it played on Antoine's ego when he's like, oh, I could do anything now. So... yeah, I like how it plays on his ego. The one thing, again, I'm trying not trying to degrade the episode because I loved it. I don't know who didn't. The one thing they didn't do was play on when Sally asked what happened, when Sonic's dragging Antoine over to the meeting area where Dulcie's at, and then suddenly there's Sally and Bunny, and Sally's asking what happened, and Sonic's like, tell you later. And he's like, tell you later. And it's like, they didn't play on that. They didn't continue that. I mean, would have loved to see the interaction where Sonic's like, oh, yeah, by the way, you know that kiss you gave him on the cheek? And I could see Sally going like, yeah, what about it? Let's just say it went straight. So I would have loved Sonic saying something like, yeah, next time, listen to what I have to say, all right? Or, yeah, next time we tell you not to kiss Antoine in any shape or form down the line, it's because it goes straight to his head. Or something. Basically acknowledge that the reason they never wanted Sally to kiss Antoine or even show him affection in some way was because it goes straight to his head. And that's what it did. So I'm surprised it didn't play up on that a little bit or add like a scene at the end for that, but I like how it did end, though. I did like how it ended with, with it basically saying next week, Doomsday. It's almost like saying to be concluded next week. Doomsday Saga to be concluded next week. It could have been just said to be concluded, but instead it said next week, Doomsday. In other words, getting you prepared because it's such a big event. I love how they did that. And then, of course, we get to Doomsday, and it's just a fantastic episode. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, you allow the villain to finally get the upper hand here. Basically, I guess playing off the fact that even though Uncle Chuck's in disguise still and spying on him, it plays off that fact that Robotnik knows Uncle Chuck is still spying on him in some ways. So I like how he basically makes Chuck and everybody else think, oh, it's going to be a week later that Doomsday's going to launch. And instead, he launches it now, basically a week earlier. And it's just the reaction that gets played off by everybody, like Sonic basically telling Antoine that Robotnik had suckered them and into believing that it was going to be a week later, and now it's here. I love that. I really do. I mean, I like how it gives everybody a reaction, gives everybody personality, moments, if you will. So it's really, really good. I mean, basically, like I said, it gives Robotnik, whether you like the guy or not, some great moments here. It's basically like he's finally proving that he is a little smarter, that he is smarter than what the freedom fighters give him credit for, that he is capable of being a step ahead of them. And it really works. It really works because he basically has all his bases covered. I mean, you have Loop and Ari get captured. You have the 2 new freedom fighters that they meet get captured. It's just a really good episode all around because basically it shows that the villain is being a step ahead, even though he does let his ego, of course, in the end, get the best of him. Because he doesn't realize that, oh yeah, I've made a roboticizer, I'm specially made a roboticizer for you, Sonic. That doesn't matter what kind of roboticizer you make to contain Sonic, it's not going to stop him. So I love how the ego kind of gets the best of him. I do like the ego, and you kind of see Snively start to really, his patience wearing thin, but he's still careful about what he says. So until the end, because at the end he basically tells Robotnik, by calling him by his real name, Julian, that he doesn't give him enough credit. Basically saying, hey, you don't give me, basically saying, hey, I could come up with even better ideas, and yet you don't give me credit for it. So it's all good. It's really all good. And the ending was just spectacular because it shows the power of the Power Stones. And it kind of shows that Sonic and Sally, well, one, you have Sally finally acknowledge to Sonic that, hey, no matter what happens, we're together. Me and you are together forever, no matter what. And I like how that's acknowledged, that right there they kind of commit to each other, that they're more than just friends now, that they're boyfriend, girlfriend, and that's it. Well, that they have been boyfriend, girlfriend, but basically this is the commitment to like, hey, whether we survive this or not, we are together now. We are not going to be separated. Basically, we're going steady, if you know what I mean. So I like how it gives them that conflict of, okay, if we do it the way we originally planned, it's going to blow us all up. But if we do, but it's going to blow us all up. But then Sonic realizes, you know, that's not a good idea. That's not good. But what if we did it the other way? And then we find out what the other way is. The other way is equal the power rings. Well, not equal to power rings, but basically, well, it's equal to power rings, but greatly amplified by 10,000 times. And that we see what that power is, that incredible power is. The incredible power, especially when 2 people absorb, because it seems that's exactly what they did. They absorbed the stones into themselves, the stones and the power into themselves. It transfers one person's power to another. In other words, in this case, it transferred Sonic's speed and a bit of his personality or his mischievousness into Sally. And the way it ended with both of them using the sonic speed to destroy the Doomsday machine was just spectacular. And I love the ending where you see that mischievous side of Sonic being influenced into Sally when she says, hey, if a high five can do that with the Power Stones, what happens with a kiss? And Sonic's like, whoa, I'm not finding out. Bye. But overall, Doomsday was definitely a great episode that, you know, just had everything covered. It just really covered everything. It covered everything that connected with the previous 3 episodes and some things that connected to the original episodes. So, I mean, it even connects somewhat to the Blast of the Past episode. Oh, towards the beginning of Cry of the Wolf, when Robotnik's gloating over what Doomsday's going to be capable of doing, and that it's going to do what he should, it's going to finish what he started doing, the coup. So I like how it acknowledges a little bit of Blast of the Past, even though Blast of the Past was its own standalone 2-part miniseries, or mini-movie, if you will. But overall, just a fantastic saga, fantastic movie when you watch it in movie format. A fantastic saga, a fantastic movie, like I say, if you watch it in movie format, movie finale for a series, because believe it or not, there have been some animated and live action series that do end the shows with movies. You don't believe me? Take a look at Disney and Kim Possible. There's your answer. Take a look right there. But, take a look at Disney's Goof Troop, how they finally ended in 2000 with extremely goofy movie. Yeah. Right then and there. So, it's not commonplace that it's not uncommon that these things happen. And I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, ABC, they missed the boat on this. They missed the boat, and they missed it in a huge way. They really did. So that's all I'm gonna say. And before I go, what I mean by saying ABC and any other station around the world that showed this missing the boat, basically I mean they missed the boat when they didn't show this as a hour and a half, 2-hour movie finale, because it really would have jumped the ratings up, and the viewership, the ratings for the show, and ratings for TGIF, and I believe viewership for the show up tenfold, and maybe would have kept it on for another season. But again, like I said, they missed the boat. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say. Once again, I want to thank MJ Knight for accepting the suggestion / challenge to do a real review on this Saga movie. Because again, when one thinks about it, in the way I explained it, if you carefully, timely edit out the title cards and all that, and you just transition, as well as you carefully, timely edit out the ending credit, going into the ending credits, and you just go from fade to black from one episode to another, you pretty much have a movie on your hands. So that's all I'm going to say. MJ Knight, I wish you the best of luck on it, and I hope you do acknowledge maybe that the Void episode had was a bit of a prelude. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm about to get ready to go wash up and get ready for work. And I'll talk to y'all later. Take your time in listening to this, because I know it was a long one. Thank you all for watching, and God bless. Take care.